here's another twist that's complicated. So imagine you have a population of people who basically cooperate reciprocally. So, you know, I do you a favor, you do me one, and maybe we figure out how to advance each other across time. That's a good game, right? Fair trade plus advancement. That's a good definition for a good marriage. Okay, but now you have a community of people like that together. Okay, now it opens up an ecological niche, and the niche is psychopathy. And the psychopath comes in and pretends that he's a productive, generous reciprocator, but he's not. He's just an instrumental manipulator. But he can get away with it because there's enough wealth generated by the cooperators, you know, the honest cooperators, so that there's a space for someone to exploit the system. And that stabilizes at 4% of the population. So, you know, across the world, 4% of people are close enough to clinically diagnosable psychopaths. And that's probably better than being, you know, paralyzed by fear and anxiety and just staying in your bed. It's better in terms of reproductive success, let's say, and maybe even success in general. But it's not a good game because in the real world, most psychopaths get found out pretty quickly. So, you know, you can screw somebody once and maybe twice, but then they figure it out and then word gets around. And so in the real world, two things happen. Psychopaths have to be itinerant so they can find new people to exploit. And the other thing that happens is generally non-psychopathic males who are fairly aggressive keep the psychopaths under control. And so part of the reason that women like men who have some capacity for aggression but who are still productive and reciprocal is that men who are productive and reciprocal who have some capacity for aggression can keep the real monsters at bay. So it's hard on women, because they have to navigate that really thin line between productive generosity and the capacity for aggression. That's a really tough thing to navigate. That's basically the story of Beauty and the Beast, the Disney movie, right? Because Gaston is a narcissistic psychopath. And the Beast is someone capable of aggression, but he's not tamed into a reciprocal relationship. It's also the basis of the most fundamental female pornographic fantasy. And the Google guys figured that out, 15 years ago when they analyzed billions of sex fantasy searches by men and women. Men go for visual imagery, but women go for story. And the story is the same. It's, innocent young woman with a lot to offer, but kind of hidden, finds some male, 5 categories of men: vampire, werewolf, pirate, surgeon, billionaire. And he's, kind of an aggressive guy, but he's capable of being tamed into an intimate relationship. That's the standard female pornographic fantasy. And it's pretty much the standard fantasy of romance. And so you can see, what women are trying to do in that situation is they're trying to find some guy that's got the capacity for mayhem, but that's under control, but who can integrate that into a productive, generous, reciprocal relationship. And so, well...
It's fascinating because the capacity for violence and the capacity for aggression is one of the things that's been actively muted in our male population.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of reasons for that, and some of them turn into positive feedback loops, like there's sort of self-fulfilling prophecies. So there's a lot of women out there who've never had a positive relationship with any male in their life, right? And maybe not only not a positive relationship, but really a series of pretty negative relationships. And so women like that are very leery of any expression of male ability of any sort because they can't distinguish productive competence from arbitrary power. And because they're trying to defend themselves because they've been hurt repeatedly, maybe they come from broken families and catastrophically arranged neighborhoods, one of the tactics that can be used in that situation is just to try to do everything you can to distance yourself as much as you can from any display of male ability, because it can't be distinguished from psychopathy. It can't be distinguished from the use of power. It takes a sophisticated woman to be able to make that distinction. So the other thing you see too is that young women are much more likely to be seduced by psychopaths than older women, because the psychopaths mimic competence. That's what a narcissist does too. They're confident. And women read confidence as a marker of competence, and that's reasonable, but that opens up it opens up a space for exploitation. Because if you can mimic confidence, That's false confidence, narcissistic false confidence. Then you look competent, and that works particularly well on naive young women. And of course, they get exploited by people like that, and they think, well, that's what men are like.
Right.
Yeah. And then women like that, you know, they have boys, and then they're afraid of the boys whenever they express anything looking like masculine competence, and they basically emasculate the boys, and then the boys get bitter, and then they mistreat women, and the whole bloody thing just spirals out of control. And that's where we are.
That's where we are. What a strange place to be, isn't it?
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Well, the unintended consequence of familial breakdown, that's a huge part of it.